Hi, this is Larry Nelson. You're listening to WrestlingInYourHead.com, and keep doing it.
All right, we're back, and we're joined by Larry Nelson, formerly of the AWA. Welcome to In Your Head.
Well, thank you, guys.
How you
Anything
doing?
good going on?
We're talking to Larry Nelson. It's good times here.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the AWA days, is that what we're going to talk about?
Oh, if you want, we can talk about today. And talk about
we can talk about anything you want to talk about. I'm in a pretty good mood.
All right.
Ooh.
No, yeah. The AWA is actually, it's kind of, being viewed now from like a whole new audience. People, didn't grow up watching it, or they might have grew up watching it and seen it again, and a whole new group of fans. They're showing it again on ESPN Classics.
Yeah, I have watched that show a couple of times, and I can't believe how different I looked 20 years ago. It's kind of fun, but there's no gray in my hair, and my hair is all gray now, and I don't have a beard, and some of those guys I can remember interviewing them, and some I can't because it's been 20 years.
Right.
And but it's a lot of fun, it really is, and I have no idea why ESPN decided to rerun those things, but I'm glad they are.
I think it's actually been a big hit because they moved it from 1 o'clock to midnight. Because apparently it was doing a lot better than the previous wrestling they were playing.
Well, you tell me why. I just don't understand it. I don't understand the repopularity of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm glad it's happening, but I just don't understand it. It was a fun show to do. Being on ESPN, obviously, was a great honor. We had been on television worldwide on our syndicated shows. But now, all of a sudden, we're on ESPN, and I'm getting fan mail from Australia, Ireland, England, countries I never heard of, asking me questions about the show.
Uh-huh.
It was a great deal of fun to do, but that was a long time ago. So
have you been being noticed more than you have been? Like if you're out and about town?
Not really. No. Because I look a whole lot different now. It's 20 years ago, guys.
All right. A lot of people on our chat.
I don't have the beard, and my hair's gray.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people are going to be upset that you don't have the beard.
Oh.
Oh, we got actually.
I gotta get some water here. I grew the beard in Vietnam, and I vowed I would never shave it off. Well, after I got out of Vietnam, and I vowed I would never shave it off. But it curls in, and it pocked my face. And the wrestlers used to kid me about it all the time, especially Larry Zbyszko. He said, that makes you look about 20 years older than you are. Why don't you just get rid of it? So, of course, as soon as he said that, I decided to keep it. That's all there was to it.
Yeah.
Okay, Zibby, you want me to shave it? I'm keeping it. So I put up with the itching, and I put powder in, and I put lotion in, and all that stuff.
Let everybody know you actually put out a book not too long ago, Wrestlehold, Stranglehold.
Well, it was actually called Stranglehold.
Yeah. And you can get that. You can still get that on Amazon. I guess it's actually kind of hard to get. It says on Amazon they got like the last remaining copies.
I haven't. I don't even own a copy of that book.
Really?
Yeah, I don't own a copy of it. I got talked into doing it by a guy I worked with. He said, "Well, tell your story." So I told my story, and I told it truthfully about my problems, my addiction problems with alcohol, cocaine, a whole bunch of things, and how I overcame that, and what went on in my life. And I tried hard because I'd read some of those other books that some of the other wrestlers had written, and they really wanted to reveal some of the serious problems the other guys had.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to stay away from that. I mean, okay, I'll tell the people what my problems were, but I'm not going to get into the problems the other wrestlers had. So I would mention a situation with someone else, but I wouldn't put their name in there. I just felt, I want to do this as a class act.
Mm-hmm. We got a bunch of callers here. We got. Let's start with Jason.
Okay.
Hello, Larry. How's it going?
Fine, Jason. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I got two really quick questions. Nothing big, nothing unusual. First one is, who was your favorite person to interview in the AWA?
Larry Zbyszko. He was the best interview you could possibly get because you couldn't throw him off. And I tried several times. I tried to ask him questions that we didn't rehearse, that he didn't expect, and he just picked up on it and threw it right back at me and gave me an answer I didn't expect. So we did that a lot in the interviews. We tried to throw one another off. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
The other one, I guess, right behind him would be Nick Bockwinkel, because Nick Bockwinkel was the most literate of the bunch and the most knowledgeable. Nick Bockwinkel was a very bright man, and he could take you in any direction you wanted to go and stay with you. It was great fun to interview Nick. Next question.
Larry owns a record here, 4-time guest on In Your Head.
Well, okay.
What was the next question, Jason?
My next question has to do with a story I've read over the years. Is it true that a certain female wrestler tried to break Larry Zbyszko during one of the interviews and mooned you guys?
Yes, that's true. Sherry Martell, as a matter of fact. Just pulled her skirt up, wasn't wearing any underwear, and if you remember Sherry Martell, she was good to look at. And it didn't throw me, but it threw Larry. He got down on his knees and started walking towards her with his hands held out and his tongue hanging out. Yeah, I mean, he was ready to go for it, and she just laughed herself silly after that. Yes, that's a true story.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
You're very welcome, Jason. Have a good night.
Thanks for calling in, Jason.
You too. Bye.
Would you say that was probably like the most memorable thing someone did to try to make you guys laugh during an interview?
Oh, no. Well, the two of us together, but no. I remember the first interview I ever did on television was with Adnan El-Casey. And halfway through the interview, he goosed me. I mean, just reached up and goosed me. Of course, no one can see that on camera. And I kind of popped my eyes, but I'd been doing interviews in radio for a long, long time, so I just kept on going. And that was it. And then there was, I can't remember who it was, the magnificent, what was her name? She went on to the WWF and became Medusa Michelli.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she reached down one time during an interview and grabbed my crotch. And that was a little difficult to continue with. That had never happened before.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, gentlemen, she just reached down and grabbed the goods, and we kept on going.
Remind me to interview Medusa at some point.
Oh, please do, because she's a lot of fun.
Yeah, sounds it. Who else we got here? We got Kicks.
Hey, Larry, how you doing?
Hi, Kicks. What's going on?
I'm doing great. Just a couple questions.
Sure.
The first question was do you believe Super Clash could have been as big or successful as WrestleMania?
Oh, I don't think there was any chance.
No.
They just had more money than we did, and there just was no way to get to their level of what they could do with promotion, their TV connections. They were out of New York. No, I don't think it ever could have been.
Mm-hmm.
Just when you guys were in the AWA and WrestleMania, when it happened, what did everyone think?
With our organization?
Yeah.
Oh, well, everybody thought it was going to be a monster success.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody worked really hard to make it that way. But by that time, we were just underfunded, and we didn't have the national attention that the other organizations had. And it was just the beginning of the end for us. It was kind of a last chance to move back up. And so it just didn't work. I mean, there were great matches. But at that point, it was pretty much over, guys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Were most of those... what was the other question, Kicks?
Oh, I was just going to ask, how was Vern Gagne as a boss,
Vern Gagne was good with me. But Vern Gagne, he just didn't see the future. He didn't want to change what he was doing. He was a traditionalist and wrestling was becoming more showbiz. And Vern just would not go in that direction. And so it didn't work out. The WWF was eating us alive, and so was the NWA. And so Vern started treating people like they weren't human beings. They were just his tools. And he tried to script everything from beginning to end. We would get ready to do interview day, and we would do interview day. We'd have it all lined up. And at the last minute, Vern would come in and want to change everything. So basically, we had to ad-lib interview day every day, which weakened everything. It was rough. But, you know, I'm not going to blame Vern because he was under the gun.
Is it? Do you know if it's true or not? They always said that Vern tried to pay Iron Sheik a whole bunch of money to break Hulk Hogan's leg.
No, that's not true.
Yeah.
That is a story that is not true.
Yeah.
The whole thing that came from Hulk was going to leave, and he was going to go to the WWF. He had contractual problems with Vern because Vern wanted a piece of Hulk's merchandise revenue in Japan. Mm-hmm. And Hulk just said, why? You know, that doesn't make sense. So they got into that dispute, but no. They didn't try. No one tried to pay anybody to break anybody's anything. Really, that's the truth as far as I know it now.
Right.
I wasn't one of the absolute insiders, but that's the truth as far as I know it.
Was there anybody in the company who tried to tell Vern that this ridiculous dispute was going to be pretty bad for business in the long run, or was it not something you could see coming?
No, there were people that tried to change things. Greg Gagne tried to change things. He said, "Now we've got to get into the future here." And the producer and director of the television show, Mike Shields, said the exact same thing. He offered several suggestions, but Vern just wouldn't hear it. And that was pretty much the downward spiral. If Greg and Mike had control, things would have probably come out differently.
Do you think, was it weird to see Vern Gagne inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame? I don't know if you're even aware of that.
Yeah, I am aware of that. No, that wasn't weird. Vern, he did a lot of great things out there. He and Buddy Rogers, Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, not Ric Flair, now Nature Boy Buddy Rogers. They set records out there, and so that was perfectly. At one time, Vern was the most popular wrestler in the world in any organization, and that was amazing. And that's another reason why he wanted to stay traditional, because he had made his reputation. He came to the ring with a pair of trunks and a towel over his shoulder. And Vern was just a wrestler. He didn't do any of the glitz, glamour stuff. Of course, he had a background in amateur wrestling, went to the Olympics, as a matter of fact. Mm-hmm. And it was so successful for him that he just did not want to change that.
Did you have anything else, Kix?
Yeah, just one last question. Were you able to see the WWE DVD, The Spectacular Legacy of the AWA, by any chance?
I think I did. It's been quite a while, but I think I did. Was I in that?
I think you were. I heard your voice.
I think briefly. They didn't tell me anything about it, but I think I did get a chance to see that. Yeah. And as I remember, it was a pretty good show. The other one I remember was when they did the Road Warriors, the whole thing about them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And part of it was the biography, and then the flip side of the DVD was me in Chicago doing the play-by-play of their match against the Freebirds. And I found out about that inadvertently, too. But that's out there somewhere.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that. That was one of my better days' work.
In your book, you actually have not so flattering stories about Road Warrior Hawk.
Those guys, they could get you in big time trouble. And Road Warrior, oh Lord, especially Hawk, he did steroids and he did them big time, which is probably why he died so young today. But yeah, he. I don't want to go into that too much.
Right.
If you read the book, you probably know why. But I was afraid I was going to get thrown in jail through no fault of my own.
Right.
He had apparently spent the night with a young lady, a real young lady, and I thought maybe some criminal investigation was going to come. And I was real happy to get out of Canada. That was when we were in Winnipeg, taping a show in Canada.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the Winnipeg stories, that's like some of the highlights of the book. You just want to tell everybody like what a typical Winnipeg like a party would be?
Well, everybody got naked and went down to the swimming pool area. And the fans that wanted to come in there, and there were a lot of them, came in there. And they locked the swimming pool area doors. The main reason they did that, they did not want these guys drunk and running crazy throughout the whole hotel.
Right.
And we stayed at the same hotel every night. And the manager finally figured out, hey, I'll close the bar, and then I don't want these guys going crazy all over my motel, so I'll let them have the pool area. And these fans, these groupies, whoever want to go in there with them, that's fine. And then I'll lock the door, and they can raise all the commotion in there they want to. And a lot of naughty stuff went on in there. I was usually the first. To tell you the truth, I was usually the first one to take all my clothes off. And then everybody followed me, and we got this big naked pool party going on with the hot tub. And, it was just pretty decadent, but it was a whole lot of fun, gentlemen.
Would you say that would be your favorite, like, venue for the AWA?
Oh, yeah. Oh, by far. Because we just had a good time there. And they had the good sense to realize these guys, after the matches, they're all fired up, and they're used to living overnight. You know what I mean? I mean, that's their life. They sleep all day. The overnight is when they have their fun. And they realized that. And they realized it was the same groupies every single month when we went there to do the television taping. And so it was like a family type thing, but a very decadent family type thing.
Like an ancient Greek family.
It was a lot of fun, but again, I was young and going a little bit wild back then.
Right. Thanks for calling in, Kix.
Thank you.
We actually got a caller from Portugal. We got
yes,
Joel.
Hello there, Mr. Larry Nelson. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How about you?
A little cold, but yeah, I'm doing fine here.
Oh, I'm sorry you're cold.
A little ill, but nothing too much. I have two questions for you. Two quick questions. I don't know if back when you were working for the AWA, if Wally Carbo and Vern Gagne were the promoters. I don't know. Who were the promoters back in the beginning? I don't recall. If you could inform me. They were. Were there big difference between the two? Would you consider Wally Carbo being a more moderate promoter, not as aggressive as Vern Gagne, or what's your opinion about both of them?
Wally Carbo probably had a better vision of what was going to happen than Vern Gagne did. Wally Carbo is a very incredible man. First of all, Wally was, everybody loved him. Everybody loved Wally Carbo in the business. I mean, he did a lot of fun things. He made Vern Gagne a star at the very beginning of Vern's career. And Vern Gagne, if you look back on it, is the only wrestler that ever came into the professional wrestling business and started at the top. And that was because Wally Carbo was able to promote him so well. But the problem was that Wally promoted Vern made a lot of money, and he bought the AWA from Wally Carbo. So now you've got Vern Gagne telling Wally Carbo what to do. And yes, there was some tension there. And at one time, Wally, at his advanced age, wanted to buy the AWA's in Canada and take that as his own, but Vern priced it so high that he couldn't do it. So, yeah, there was tension between Wally and Vern. It worked well until the war started between the three organizations, the WWF, the AWA, and the NWA. And Wally could see what was going to happen, Vern couldn't, and there was some tension, so Wally finally just got out of it. And he could afford to, and that was great, because Wally Carbo was one of the most wonderful people I ever met in my life. You want to hear a Wally Carbo story?
Definitely.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We are flying to Denver, Colorado to do our wrestling show there, right?
Mm-hmm.
We get there. We do the show. Wally Carbo was always picked up. Now, this is a man in his late 60s. He was always picked up by a very attractive woman in a very new car. And he would immediately leave with her with a great big bottle of scotch, and we wouldn't see him again until after the wrestling event was over. And then he would come back, and he would get the proceeds from the promoter. He would disappear again, and we wouldn't see him until the next morning when this beautiful woman would drive him to the airport. So one time in Denver, Wally gets out of his car, and me, Nick Bockwinkel, and Bobby the Brain Heenan are following him down the area to get on the airplane. Wally's only wearing one sock, right? And so Bobby Heenan catches up with him. He says, Wally, where's your sock? And Wally goes, obviously hungover. He goes, I don't know. I have no idea. We get on the plane. Wally always flew first class. We always flew coach. We get off the plane. The three of us are following Wally off the plane. And we look, and now he's got both his socks on. Bobby Heenan catches up to him again. He said, Wally, you got two socks now. Where was the other sock? Wally goes, in his hungover voice, had them both on the same foot.
That is great.
That's Wally Carbo.
Yeah, that's...
Anything
That's
else I can talk to you about?
Yeah, just one more thing, very quickly.
Sure.
Do you believe that with the birth of the AWA, when the AWA was formed, was there a dream to take wrestling back to its roots, less sports entertainment, more just pure strict, pro wrestling, kind of like a take on amateur wrestling, transformed into pro wrestling, more a sports-like environment? Do you think that was the concept that brought the AWA in the beginning? That was the idea of what the AWA should be?
Absolutely. And that, again, is because of Vern's background. The AWA was formed as a spinoff of the NWA. And I don't even remember the year, Lordy, long time ago. Late 50s, probably. And the AWA, because of Vern Gagne's extensive background in amateur wrestling. I mean, he had been an NCAA wrestling champion. At the University of Minnesota. He went on to participate in the Olympics, and that's what he was known as. And so they didn't want to get into a whole lot of glitz and glamour. They would make bad guys, of course, out of like Hans Schmidt. Yeah. But they didn't want it showbiz to the degree that it lost the wrestling effect. And it worked out very well for him.
Thanks for calling in, Joel.
Thank you for answering my questions, Mr. Nelson.
Thanks for talking to me, Bubba.
Bye then.
We'll just call him Bubba. It's probably a lot better.
Yeah.
You got a question from the message board there, Incher?
Yeah, actually, Van from our message board, he has a question. He wants to know, what are your memories of the Midnight Rockers gimmick where you actually sported the Rockers vest and shades?
Oh, wow. Those guys got me in a whole lot of trouble. But I don't know how it evolved. But somehow, I was kind of like their sub manager, and they would do crazy things. They'd always pick me up, take them to the airport, or take me to the airport. And I remember one time I was running a little late, and I'm in the bathtub, and they want me to get out, and I was in the bathtub for whatever reason instead of the shower. And they said, come out of there. We got to get to the airport. We want to get to the airport early. We want to see the ladies. We want to have some drinks before the plane starts. And I said, just give me a little time. They came into the bathroom, dropped their pants, and started peeing in my bathwater to get me out of there. And I just kind of somehow, and I really can't tell you how it evolved, but I more or less became the third Midnight Rocker. I remember one show they came out and put a headband on my head and sunglasses on my face, and it worked with the fans. And during their matches, I would hang out at ringside and yell for them and root for them and kind of run around with them and point out what was going on. So I can't tell you how that evolved, but that's right. It did evolve that way. I became very closely associated with those two guys.
There's actually a video. It's online now. It's from the 80s, I guess, with the Midnight Rockers and you in a dunk tank.
Yes. Yeah, where they run up and don't throw the ball. They just push the button and dunk me.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they really did that. That was done at a nightclub in downtown Minneapolis. I think it was called Jukebox Saturday Night.
I gotta know.
We had a big promotion going on down there.
I gotta know. Do you know if the tape still exists that you talk about in your book with Marty Jannetty?
The tape of Marty Jannetty?
Yeah, it's Shawn Michaels brings in a prostitute into one of the interviews.
Oh, boy, I hope not. That was on Marty's birthday. And you really want me to talk about what went on? Graphically? I mean,
if you wanna.
Well, I don't know what audience would be offended by, but
this is our fans won't be offended by anything.
Okay, Sean had bought a prostitute for Marty's birthday and surprised everybody when she showed up at our television taping. And right there, and I mean, she just came in, and everybody was kind of surprised, and she performed oral sex on Marty while our director and producer, Mike Shields, filmed the whole thing. Of course, it never made the airwaves. Caused a little bit of ruckus in the office.
I rated episode.
Production, by the way, complete halt.
Oh, man.
And, I mean, she took all of her clothes off, and then when it was all over, she put her clothes on, went away, and we went right back to producing the television show.
Excellent.
You talk a lot about Stan Hansen in the book. I was just wondering what your thoughts of Stan Hansen, like when I guess he wouldn't give the title back, and supposedly he ran over the AWA belt when he sent it back.
Stan Hansen, I had never heard of him when he came into the organization and did his first match. And I was to interview him afterwards. And for whatever reason, I decided to tremble when I was interviewing him. And he loved it. And it really worked for him. They thought, this guy must be absolutely a terror. And Stan and I got along real well. I remember when he knocked me down at a match in Minneapolis on camera. But Stan did not want to give up the belt. They wanted to get the belt back to Nick Bockwinkel. And Stan could not afford to do that because he wanted to go to Japan as the AWA champion. And so he wouldn't give him back the belt. He took the belt to Japan and wrestled there and one of his stints there as the AWA champion. And then when he came back, of course, he had quit the AWA, and I was afraid lawsuits were going to be flying all over the place. And he put, what he told me later was that he put the belt down in his driveway, drove over it with his truck, and mailed it back to the AWA. Which I thought, oh, okay, well, I guess that's a protest of some sort or another. He was that kind of guy.
Right.
And he was very good friends with, I don't know what you want to call him. We called him King Kong Brody. He was Bruiser Brody to most of the world, but at the AWA he was King Kong Brody. He got murdered after a match in Puerto Rico. And they were very good friends. And Brody wrestled in the AWA for a while, and they wanted to be tag team partners. And Vern would have none of it, so there was a lot of tension there between Stan and Vern, and you know, it was just one of those things.
Yeah. I was wondering why he was a Bruiser Brody there. Was it because, like, Dick the Bruiser was, you know, like a legend?
That's exactly right. We already had a Bruiser in the organization. And so they thought, for whatever reason, we can't have a second Bruiser. So they decided to call him King Kong Brody.
Okay. What are your thoughts on Bruiser Brody?
Bruiser Brody, well, I don't know. I don't want to... I really liked the guy. And any territory he went to, he became the main draw in that territory. There was nobody, and I mean nobody, that could draw more people, including the Road Warriors, and they were a phenomenal draw. But he drew a lot of fans to the matches to make the money, which is what it was all about. But he had a little bit of a substance abuse thing that helped him achieve his high level of what he did. Mm-hmm. And that caused some tension in the organization, too. If you look back on his career, he never stayed in one organization very long. He would jump from the Texas group that was owned by the Von Erichs to us, to the NWA, and they tell me that the reason why was because they would get upset with his substance problem. Even though he made them a lot of money, they were afraid he was going to cause them a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
We got a call here, area code 412.
Yeah, I got a question for you.
Who is this?
Okay.
Ken from Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Hi, Ken.
Hey, long-time fan, Mr. Nelson. First of all, if I may.
How you doing, Ken?
I'm good. How about you, Larry?
I'm doing all right.
A few interesting questions for you. One, Eric Bischoff. Well, first off, have you seen the AWA DVD?
Yeah, we
probably. I think I did. Is that the one that was hosted by Eric and Greg Gagne?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I think I do. I think I do remember that. Yeah, I have seen that.
And Eric told the story of there was an announcer. I don't know if I can even tell this story or not, but whatever. That there was an announcer that the night before he became the announcer got a DUI in another area. First question is, was that you?
No,
or was that another
wasn't
announcer?
Me.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Because you're the only announcer that I thought of that at the AWA, because in the Boston area, we got you on ESPN.
Right.
And around that time period, when Bischoff came on, we didn't get AWA anymore.
Oh, I don't understand that.
So that's...
probably we lost the affiliate out there. And I don't know what happened. I don't know. Maybe ESPN, maybe it didn't do well in that market for ESPN, so they didn't air it there.
Right. They're like, no, Larry, we're taking this off.
That was it. Memories of working with Colonel De Beers.
Oh, wow.
And the night he beat down Jimmy Snuka.
Right.
In general.
Yes. They had a heck of a rivalry going. Well, if you want to call it a rivalry, it was a savage battle.
Completely one-sided at one point.
Yeah, it was very one-sided, but it was supposed to be that way. And Colonel De Beers, he was a very hard person to present because we used to get a lot of comments. If you remember Colonel De Beers correctly,
yes,
he didn't have a problem with racism.
South African racist. And he would control his mustache and shit.
Right, the front side.
Right.
Yeah, because
that was what he did. And that's what got him and Snuka into all that trouble. But yeah, they never did get to finish that rivalry.
Who left first? But that's because Snuka went back to Vince, or is that just because De Beers went down to Herb Abrams and the UWF?
That's what I'm told. Yes. I don't remember exactly what happened there, but that was one of those behind-the-scenes things that I wasn't privy to. But De Beers and Snuka, there was a world of difference between them. Jimmy was barely literate in this country. Mm-hmm. And Colonel De Beers was highly educated and a very intelligent man. And they were at odds a little bit that way. It was hard for them to work together and come up with anything together because of those problems.
Thanks for calling in, Ken.
Hey, you too, guys. Thanks.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question, the one you wanted to hear, Ken?
I think you did.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure what he wanted.
Yeah. Did you want to talk at all about Eric Bischoff? I think that the story is partly true. You know, he after you left AWA, then he was given they went to him to be the interview guy.
Eric Bischoff was in sales, and he was an assistant to our producer Mike Shields. And Eric Bischoff used to stand by the camera and count me down. We have 30 seconds, 40 seconds. And he was continually amazed at how I could finish right on the second. But as you know, you're in radio. We're trained to do that. Mm-hmm. We can hear the clock running in our head. We know when it's up. Mm-hmm. And Eric had never really done anything like that before. He had been in record promotion before he came to the AWA. And that amazed him, and he was really interested in that. And I left the AWA in a fluff. It was a very cowardly thing for me to do. I had a DUI problem. And I had decided, and they had cut my money back because we just weren't doing that well anymore. And so I said, to heck with this. I'm leaving. I'm going to Florida. And I didn't tell them. It was a very cowardly thing to do. I just took my money when they paid it to me and left and didn't show up on interview day. So they had to have someone do it, and they chose Eric. And I guess he did a fairly good job of it. Lee Abrams then finally took over the ESPN show. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what happened after that. Eric and some of the other guys from the AWA, when it folded, when ESPN pulled the contract, a lot of the guys from the NWA went down to the, what was it called then, the WWE, or was it still the NWA?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And Eric wound up running the show down there. But I used to watch that show, and they had a lot of great wrestlers, but Eric's ego got in the way. He decided he wanted to be more important in the show. So he wouldn't just do the interviews. He decided he wanted to be in the wrestling shows. And he did more and more and more of that, and it became the Eric Bischoff show. And, of course, the ratings started to dive because people didn't really care that much about Eric Bischoff. They wanted to build the wrestlers, and he didn't want to do that. He wanted to build Eric Bischoff. And that was a hard problem for the NWA and wound up causing their demise, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Have you watched his new program, Hulk Hogan Celebrity Championship Wrestling?
I didn't even know he had a new program.
Oh, okay.
Oh, good. Where's that? Where do I find that?
It's on CMT. It's he's like the producer, and it's him and Hulk Hogan and Jimmy Hart, and they have celebrities, trained to be wrestlers.
No, I had no idea about that one. No, I think I'll pass on that one.
Right. You don't want to see Todd Bridges wrestle?
Who?
The guy from Different Strokes.
Yeah, Willis from Different Strokes. Danny Bonaducci.
No, I think I'll just let that one go. I don't want to see celebrities. I'll watch NASCAR. Okay.
Just so everybody knows out there, we'll actually be having Eric Bischoff live here on the show next week.
Well, good. I'm glad of that.
Yeah.
Wish him well for me.
Yeah.
I'm glad he's doing all right.
Something I always wondered, did you ever think it was weird, like when Baron von Raschke became like a babyface and people are like cheering him doing the goose step?
No, I don't think that was weird. Jim Raschke could do anything he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it was real easy for him. Now, in the beginning, he was the hottest thing the NWA had when he first came on the scene as Baron von Raschke, the evil German. Mm-hmm. And he had that thing down cold. But as thing of all, you know very well, if you've watched wrestling for any time at all, that when a villain, or what we call a heel, becomes a babyface, the fans just go crazy for it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they converted. And Jim was able to do that very, very well.
Do you think, though, like, I just to say, like, once someone really becomes like a legend, they really can't be the villain anymore because everyone just wants to love them? Well,
what happens, and again, we're going back to Bruiser Brody or King Kong Brody or whatever you want to call him. He told me one time that if you're a villain and you talk big and bad and you come out and back it up, that sooner or later the fans are going to like you, mm-hmm. no matter who you're beating up. It's the John Wayne thing. You talk big and bad, and you come out and you back it up. And so the best thing the organization can do is then make you a baby face or a good guy or whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
Because the fans are already starting to like the fact that you're doing what you say you're going to do. If you're a sneaky type heel or villain or whatever you want to call them, okay, you can stay that way. But if you're big and bad and you come out and back it up, sooner or later the fans are going to fall in your corner no matter who you are or what you're doing. So it's good to turn that person into a good guy. Mm-hmm. Babyface, again, whatever you want to call him.
Are you surprised how open wrestling is that, like, you know, fans know those terms, babyface and heel, and, you know, people talk about openly?
Not really. Not anymore. I think the WWF changed that. It started when Vince wanted to get out of the tax situation of calling themselves a professional sport.
Mm-hmm.
And so he started calling it sports entertainment. And that kind of sent up the flag that, hey, you know, maybe this is showbiz and not sports. He did it for money purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when people started talking openly. The wrestlers started talking openly about the whole thing.
Yeah. I don't know if you know, but just recently they actually said that they don't want him mentioning sports anymore either. It's just entertainment.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand where that's going. It's a tax thing. It's a money thing.
Mm-hmm. And they actually have a wrestler on TV now called Kazarni. You know, it's using actually Carney as his gimmick.
Right.
And he speaks all in Carney. You think like any fans would even get that? I mean, I'm sure some people on the internet would, but
well, it's not that hard to do. Do you want me to explain it?
Sure.
All you do is you take the first syllable. Like my name is Larry.
Right.
You would call me Leazari.
Right.
You put an ease in between the first syllable and the second syllable, and put an airy at the end of it. And that is, back in the old days, that's the way the carnival people talk to one another.
Right.
Because it's it was a sucker business, and they didn't want people to know what they were saying. So they would Leazari instead of what they were talking about. And yeah, I don't know. I explained that in my book.
Yeah.
But, I didn't realize it was someone explaining it.
They don't even really explain it. It's just that's the guy's gimmick, and I don't know. I mean, I know what they're doing, but I can't imagine like the mass of people watching it even know what the hell's going on when they see it.
They probably don't. I don't think that is that far. There was one time when the wrestlers would get really, really mad if someone outside the business figured it out. They didn't like that.
Right.
And there were other terms that they would use, like if someone who wasn't in the wrestling business was coming on to the set, a guest, they would all holler, "Kayfabe, kayfabe," and that meant there is someone who's not in the business around, so be careful.
Barbara, do you have a question?
Okay.
Absolutely, I do. Van from the message board wants to know if you have any good Ron Trongard or Lee Marshall stories.
Lee Marshall and I it turned out to be pretty good buddies, but I don't have it. I remember one time that I picked him up at the airport in Tennessee, and he was supposed to be on the air with me in about half an hour. Well, neither one of us has ever been to Tennessee before. This was in Memphis, and we got lost. and he and I were both pretty upset about it. He finally got us there. And there was about 2 minutes. Well, no, that's an exaggeration. A very few minutes when Lee had to get in there. I had my tuxedo on when I picked him up at the airport. I never saw a man change out of street clothes into a tuxedo faster than Lee Marshall did. But he did, and we got there on time.
Inchman, you got a question?
Yeah, Taurus from our message board. He wants to know who was the most difficult to interview.
You know, that could be a problem. I would probably say, in the beginning, Medusa Michelli, because she was so nervous, and you had to coax her through the whole thing. probably the women, and the same thing with Sherry Martel. She would actually tremble when you were trying to interview her. If you had to interview her as just herself, if she could stand there with a manager helping her out, it was fine. But for the most part, the women superstars, if you had to interview them without a manager there with them, they tended to get nervous. I don't know why. I'm not saying that as a sexist comment. It's just that was the way it was.
Right. You always hear about Kurt Hennig and playing a lot of ribs backstage. Do you have any Kurt Hennig rib story?
Kurt Hennig, there are so many rib stories I can't even count them. He would moon people. He would step in front of the camera while an interview was going on and say something stupid just to dust it up. He was a very likable guy, and I hated it when I heard about his death. He was a great kid.
Mm-hmm. Over the years, I guess you've heard a lot of deaths of a lot of the guys who were a lot younger than you. Did you ever? What do you think about all the deaths in wrestling?
Well, it is a business that takes you out of reality. I know because I was there. And let's face it, guys, I had drug and alcohol problems when I was in that business, and I saw a lot of people around me having the same things. And the reason is there's no reality. You're not in the real world. You tend to believe the world you're in is the world the way it is. You don't live a life like other people live. Again, your life is airports, hotel rooms, and wrestling arenas. You're adored or hated by the fans, but it doesn't matter because you're famous. Mm-hmm. And reality becomes a completely different thing to you. You're not living in the real world. And you're living at a very fast pace, and you're living at a very different lifestyle. And drugs are available, let's face it. I used to go to Las Vegas, and these guys are stars, and I was too. And they would have some fans that would show up there with a whole bunch of money and liquor and cocaine and everything else, and they would approach us with all of that just so they could hang out with us. So you lose touch with reality, and when you do that, anything can happen, including death.
Let everybody know, what are you doing currently?
Oh, I'm back in radio. Radio's always been my first love.
Mm-hmm. How can everyone out there find you? How can they listen to you?
Oh, well, if you want to go to my website, it's larry@yourcountrystation.net. And if you email me, I'll tell you if I'm on anywhere where you can hear me.
Excellent. We'll put that up on the website so everybody can they can email you and tell you if they listen to you on the show.
Okay. That'd be great.
Right. Anything you'd like to tell everybody out there you never got the chance to?
Oh, I can't think of anything right off the bat. You guys have pretty much covered it for me. Yeah. It's been a real pleasure talking to you guys.
Yeah, it's been
your stuff.
Really appreciate you coming on tonight.
Absolutely.
It's not a problem in the world. Anytime, guys, just let me know. We'll do it again.
All right. We'll be calling you back next week.
All right.
This is Eric Bischoff. Controversy creates cash. You know what else? You're listening to In Your Head